Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a new Bluebook robotics video, and today in this video we're hitting the next practice test. We're going to be doing practice test number 6 today. Now this is one of the harder practice tests, but we're just going to jump right into it and get an 800. Again, same thing, we're going to do Desmos only, show you how to get a perfect 800, walk through it using Desmos on every question, and yeah, that's going to be it. So let's hop right into it. Today is Christmas Eve, so I am wearing a Santa hat to help spread the Christmas spirit. So, let's hop right into it. Alright, so first question. A certain bird species can fly at an average rate of 60 meters per second. At this rate, how many meters would this fly in 4 seconds? So this is just 16 times 4, which is 64. Line R in the xy plane has a slope of 4 and passes the point 0, 6, which equation defines R? Okay, well in this case, it's a slope of 4x and passes at 0.6, so it's 4x plus 6. Next. Which expression is equivalent to this? Okay, well, we can factor out an x cubed, and the only one that does that is b. You can't factor out an 8x because that will factor out an 8 out of everything, and you get weird numbers. So in this case, it's b. And that's just simplest way to do it. Just see what's like the easiest one you can factor out. But if you really want to check it, you can always just put it into Desmos like this. And look at that. Our lines match up perfectly. So B is our answer. In the equation x plus y equals 1440, represents the number of minutes of daylight between sunrise and sunset, x, and the number of minutes of non-daylight, y, on a particular day. If the day is 670 minutes of daylight, how many minutes of non-daylight does it have? So we have, so x is daylight, so we have 670 plus y gets us, y1, gets us 1440. So what is y1? 1770. So that's our answer. Scott selected 20 employees at random from all 400 employees at a company. He found that 16 of the employees are enrolled in exactly 3 professional development courses. Which of the following is the best estimate of the number of employees who are enrolled in exactly 3 professional development courses? So if he selected, if 16 out of 20, so 16 over 20 is 0.8, so 80% of all 400 employees. So what's 80% of, 400? That's 320. Or in this case, you could just do 400 times 0.8. And you get 320. Or if you wanted to use regression, you could do this. And then do, say, b, for example, over 400. And CB is 320. So this is saying that 16 over 20 is b over 400. And it pretty much guesses the best value for b. And in this case, b is 320. Which equation is the same solution as the given equation? Okay, well, let's just, you could do this both ways, do it algebraically or with Desmos. So you have the solution of 6, 0 minus 3, 6. Oh, look at that. Perfect. And well, that's our answer. Yeah. So equals 9. And that matches up perfectly, so that has to be our answer. Number 7. The given equation relates the positive numbers c, p, and k. Which equation correctly expresses c in terms of p and k? So, honestly, the best way to do this is literally just add 7 to the other side. And you get c equals 25p plus k plus 7. So, that's just the best way to do it. Obviously, you can throw it into Desmos, put in random numbers for c, p, and k, and then just see if you get the same answer. But if not, then just, this is probably the easiest way. A function p estimates that there are 2,000 animals in a population in 1998. Each year, the function estimates the number of animals in this population increased by 3% of the number of animals in the previous year. Which equation defines this function? Okay, so the initial was 2000. So we're starting with 2000. So that is all the answer choices. And it increases by 3%. So D we can automatically rule out because this is a decreasing exponential. And I can show you here. Because anything less than 1 is decreasing. Yeah, see, so like 1.1 is increasing, and then 0.99999 is just decreasing. So, in this case, we can rule out D. Increases by about 3%. So, 3 is clearly way too much, because this is not increasing by 3%. It's increasing by a lot more than that. So here, we'll look at here. Yeah, it's increasing way more than 3%. So we can do 1.97 to check. This is also increasing by a lot. So this one looks more natural, increasing by about 3%. Yeah, so this would be our correct answer, 1.03. And in this case, 1 represents just 100%. So 3% would be 1 plus 0.03, which is just 1.03. So in this case, C is the correct answer. Now, if you knew that, you could just automatically see that C is the right answer. And if not, if you want to guess and check, this would be your best answer, best way of doing it. So, which expression is equivalent to that? Okay, let's do it. Squared plus x minus 5, x plus 5. There we go. And then we get something that looks like this. Okay. And now we know they're going to be all x cubed, or x to the 4th. There's going to be 121 somewhere in there. Well, maybe not. I don't know. We can check it. So we'll just try all the different answer choices. So we'll do x to the 4th plus 23x squared minus 14. That clearly doesn't work. We can do plus 96, which actually matches up perfectly. So that's our answer choice. Another way of doing this is you can see that this is clearly a quadratic. So if you look here, you can see that the y-intercept is 96, and in any quadratic that's in like standard form like this, in this case, the final like constant number is what's going to be your y-intercept. So in this case, if you saw this and thought that, oh shoot, 96 is my y-intercept, let me look at which one is has 96 as its y-intercept, then you could figure out that B is the correct answer. Perfect. An egg is thrown from a rooftop. The equation this represents the situation where h is the height of the egg above the ground after it was thrown. What is the height from which it was thrown? Okay, so in this case, this is the height formula, like when you like drop something, how quickly it falls. So in this case, the answer is 18, because that is the y-intercept. But if you didn't know that, we can model it here. Plus 9x plus 18. So we're starting at 0. So 0 seconds after it was thrown, it was at 18 feet, which means that what is the height in which the egg was thrown from? It's at 18 meters. So that's our answer. If that equals 16, what is the value of 6x? So let's find out what x actually equals. Oh, there we go. Let's do regression for this. And x equals 8. Okay, so what is 6 times x1? 48, and that's our answer. If you didn't want to do regression for this, you could also just set this equal. There's no equal here. set this equal, and see that that is 8. So what is 6 times 8? 48. But it's also weird because this won't let you click on it. So if you want to make this line like clickable, what you can do is you can move the 16 to the other side and then set that equal to 0. Or sorry, just move that to the other side. And you can see here that it lets you it lets you actually click on this and see that x equals 8. So 6 times x is 48. The relationship between two variables. Sorry guys, I'm a bit sick, so you might hear it in my voice, but the relationship is linear. For every increase in x by 1, y is increased by 8. When x is 2, y is 18. What represents this? So they're giving us points, essentially. So let's do a table. When x is 2, y is 18. And then so when x increases by 1, so x3, y increases by 8. So what's 18 plus 8? 26. Then we can use this regression that we found here and find the equation of the line, which equation represents this relationship, and it's 8x plus 2. Perfect. Next, how many distinct real solutions does the equation have? Let's see. So in this case, you know, to solve for x, you would have to take the square root of a negative number, but you know that you can't take the square root of a negative number because that gets you an imaginary solution. So how many distinct real solutions does this have? 0, because there's no cases where this can realistically be anything. Right? Hold up. Let me like double check this. Yeah. If you zoom out, there's just no answer. Because this would show you an answer. Like if this was positive here, it would show you the correct solutions. But since it's negative, there's no solution. So the box plot shows the distribution of books from two classes. What is the positive difference in the range? Okay, so the range is the difference from the highest to the lowest. So in this case, what's the range of the first one? 5. It's between 0 and 5. So in this case, it's 5. And in the second one, it's 10 to 1. So it's a range of 9. So what is the difference between the ranges between the two classes? 9 minus 5, which is 4. So essentially we take the range of the first class, which is 5 minus 0, from the top to the bottom, and the range of the second, 10 minus 1, and subtract the 2. The length of the edge of a base of a right square prism is 6 units. The volume is 2,880. What is the height of this prism? So a prism, as you essentially know, is like a box. So if we know the volume is 2,880, and we know that for a box, it's length times width times height. So the length of the edge of the base, if it's a square, that means its length and its length and its width are the same. So in this case, it's 6 times 6, which is 36, times x equals 2,880, because that's its volume. So in this case, we're going to have to solve for x. And in this case, x is 80. So that's our height. Our height would be 80. So if we plug that back in, we get 2,880. So that is our correct answer. The scatter plot shows the relationship between x and y. An equation for the exponential model can be written as this, where a and b are positive constants, which of the following is closest to the value of b. Okay, so as we know, a is our y-intercept. So it looks like our y-intercept is about 125. It's not quite 130, not quite 120, so call it 125. And then it's obviously decreasing. So the only one that's decreasing is this, is 0.83. And we can see that that lines up pretty closely. Because at about 14, should be at here. It's going to be about 10, so 14 is going to be at, yeah, about 9. That sounds about right. We'll say at like 3 on the x-axis, it'll be about 70. And that's correct, so this is our only possible solution. Because if you were to pick any other number, you'd see that it's actually increasing. But in this case, the scatter plot shows that it's decreasing, so 0.83. In the triangle, what is the value of cosine x? So, we all know the acronym SOHCAHTOA. So in this case, it's ka, so it's, my goodness. So its cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 11, hypotenuse is 28, so it's 11 over 28. What is a positive solution to the given equation? Okay, x plus 2 equals 0, x equals negative 2. So pretty much you want to take this and set each individual x equal to 0. So in this case, the only positive answer would be 5. But if you didn't feel like doing that, you could also just set that equal to 0. Or, oh, sorry. To retype it again. So what's our only positive solution? Positive 5 comes 0. And that's our answer. In the figure shown, WZ and XY intersect at point Q. YQ is 70, WX is 60, XQ is 120. What is the length of YZ? It's actually 63 over 70. So YQ is 63 over 70, which is WQ, is regressed to, we started with YQ, and we have to solve for YZ, so X1 over WX, which is 60, and that is 54, right here. Or another way to find this is 63 over 70 is 0.9. So what is 0.9 times 60? 54. So since this triangle QYZ is 0.9%, or like 90% of the size of WXQ, then you can just do that times the side of WX, and see that is 54. Both methods work easily. So the function g is defined by this, where t is a constant. In the xy plane, the graph passes at the point 24, 0. What is the value of g of 0? So g of x equals and it passes through the points 24, 0. Alright, so we have 24, 0. We'll call this requiesce. And requiesce is all the way out here. So we need to find what the value of t is so that it hits through the point 24. And in this case, t equals 24 to have to hit the value of, pass to the point 24, 0. And now in this case, we need to find what is the value of g of 0. So in this case, g of 0 is equal to 336. Because as we're sliding around t so that it satisfies the equation and passes to the point 24, 0, it's increasing this y value here to be up to 336 for one x0. Alright, this is one of my favorite questions. The number of zebras in a population in 2018 was 1.27 times the number of zebras in this population in 2014. If the number of zebras in this population in 2014 is p% the number of zebras in the population of 2018, what is the value of p to the nearest whole number? Okay, so this, at first glance, seems like it makes no sense. But once you know how to do this the easy way, it's actually pretty simple. So we have to find what is the number of zebras in the population in 2014 as it is in 2018. So we'll label A as zebras in 2018. So 2018 zebras. 2018 zebras. And then we'll label B as 2014 zebras. Excuse me. So, in this, we're going to use a regression because it's by far the easiest way to do this. The number of zebras in a population. So, in 2018, it is 1.27 A. Or sorry, 1.27 A B. Okay. Or sorry. 1.27 A. No, I had it right the first time. Yeah. As the number of zebras in this population in 2014 is P% the number of zebras in 2018, what is the value of P? So, P% of so then A is sorry. So essentially what we're saying here is that A, so the number of zebras in 2018, which is A, so A is, I had these flipped, sorry. Yes, there we go, sorry. So essentially what we're saying is that A, which is the 2018 zebras, is equal to 1.27%, or sorry, 1.27 times the number of zebras in 2014. And then now we have B, which is the number of zebras in 2014, is P% the number of zebras in 2018. So P% of A is what of B, essentially. So we have 1.27B, so you start with 1.27 times the population in 2014 is equal to A, and then you say P% of A is equal to B, and P is 78.74. So what is the value of P to the nearest whole number? So that is just 79, because 78.74 rounds up to 79. And now we're going to find another question like this soon, but this is a very important Desmos trick to know, because this came up, I'm pretty sure, on the December SAT, and it's come up on a couple of different SATs as well. So this is a very important Desmos trick to know, and we'll go over this a couple more times in future practice tests as well. Alright, circle A is defined by the equation x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals 9. Circle B is the result of shifting A down 6 units and increasing the radius so that the radius of circle B is 2 times the radius of circle A. Which equation defines circle B? So, let's find circle A first. So it's x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals 9. And that's our equation. So now let's see which one actually follows through with the or satisfies the equation. So we have to shift it down 6 units and increase its radius. So the only way to do that is by changing the y. So we'll start with the first equation. Plus 6 squared equals 9. 4 times 9. So, in this case, we shifted this down 6 units, so from the center down to -6. So from 0 down to -6, so we shifted it down 6 units. and we increase its radius by 2, because if we were to do this, its radius doesn't increase. But when we multiply by 4, its radius doubles. Its radius here was 3, and now in this case, it's from 4 to 8, so 12, half of 12 is 6. So we go from, 3 to 6. So its radius is doubling here. And now if we were to try some of the other equations, such as like the second one, we get actually half. Because you would just divide the 2 over, and the radius would then become like 4.5, which is actually half of what we wanted. So it would have to be something like this to double its radius. So that's why A is correct. And now on to module 2. Alright. A manager is responsible for ordering supplies for a shop. They start with 4,500 cups, and 70 are used each day. And how many days will they reach 1,700 cups? Okay, so they start with 1,450. And they use 70. And then they want to reach 1,700. So we can just use a regression for this. We can do 1,400, which is how much to start with, minus 70. Minus 70 cups and per day. So how many days until they reach 1,700? So for this to be true, B would have to be 40. So it'd have to take 40 days until they reach 1,700 cups. In RST, the measure of R is 63. Which of the following could be the measure of S? So we know a triangle has to add up to 180 degrees. Okay? And then if we subtract 73, we're left with 117 degrees. And now the smallest possible like degree or like angle that it could be would be like about like less than 1, probably like 0.0001. So in this case, we still have to leave some room for the last angle. So the smallest it could possibly be is 116, because anything more than 117 and it just isn't a triangle. So 118, 126, and 180 don't work. So it would have to be 116, which is less than 117. So, which of the following values of x and y are solutions? So let's graph the inequality. 4x plus 8. Let's make a table. And we have 2, 19, 4, 30, 6, 41. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Perfect. This satisfies the inequality. All the points are on the red side of the line, the correct side. So that is true. The function f is defined by this. For what value of f of x does f of x equal 5? So f of x equals so we need to find where f of x equals 5. So we can do a put in f of x equals 5 and see where they intersect. So in this case at 3. So when x is 3, y is 5. So when so what is f of 3? In this case, f of 3 is 5. So that is correct. For what value of x? X is 3 when when y is 5, so that's our answer. During a portion of a flight, a small airplane's cruising speed varied between 150 miles per hour and 170. Which inequality best represents the solution? So it's anywhere between 150 to 170, so the only possible answer choice is D. It doesn't talk about 20. Less than or equal to 150, no. Less than 170, yes, but they're forgetting about the 150, so D is the only possible answer choice. The graph models the number of active projects a company was working on X months after the end of November 2012. What is the predicted number of projects the company is working on at the end of 2012, November 2012? So that's pretty much just what it's asking, like, what is the y-intercept? Like, when is at the end of November, how many projects were they working on? And in this case, November is at 0, so they were working on 5 projects by the end of it. So they're giving us 2 points, and we define which equation defines h. So let's just use a regression. 28, 15, 26, 22. And we have negative 3.5x plus 113. So negative 7 over 2 plus 113 would be the equation for this. Alright, next question. So number 8. The table shows the linear relationship between the number of cars and the maximum number of passengers that the train can carry, which represents this. So let's just plug in our points. 55 times 3, so we'll try the first equation. 55c minus p equals negative 9. So 55 times 3 minus 174 equals negative 9. So that's correct, which is our answer choice. Perfect. So if we were to do that for number b, that's equals 9, which is just not correct. Now if we flip it, we do 55 times 174 minus 3. That does not give us negative 9 or 9. So A is our only possible answer choice for this one. So that's our answer. Which of the following is a solution to the given equation? Okay, we'll rewrite w as x, so that Desmos recognizes it as a variable. And that's negative 40 equals 0. And then we have this as 2.7. So we'll try a bunch of different answer choices. And we also have negative 14.7 as an answer choice. So we'll guess and check all of these and see which one matches up. So that's negative 2.7, so that's not correct. 2 root 9 is 8, that's not correct. Root 19 is not correct either. So 2.717, and that looks to be correct. So D is our only answer choice here. What is the y-coordinate of the y-intercept in the xy plane? Okay, so let's graph this. Equals negative 5y over 9 plus 29. Sorry, plus 21. So what's the y-intercept? 37.8. So that is our answer. Perfect. So, what system of linear equations is represented by the lines shown? So in this case, let's just plug in all the different answer choices and see which one matches up closely with this. So, x plus 4y equals 32. Negative 10x minus 4y. So this intersects eventually, yes, but not at the 8, 0 point. So we need to see where it intersects at around here. So A is not correct. So let's try number 2. So this is positive. This definitely doesn't work. So let's try number 3. 4x minus 10y equals negative 64, and that looks close, but this is positive, not negative. So in this case, that's wrong, leaving us with the only possible answer choice of D, which is correct. Perfect. The solution to the given system equations is xy. What is the value of 6 times x minus 2? So let's find the solution, I guess. So let's graph the 2 points and see where they intersect on the line. X minus 2 plus 4 plus 7. And here they're going to intersect at, here. Intersect at this point. So what is the value of 6 times x minus 2? So let's get rid of the y here. And then call this 6 times x minus 2. So our answer choice is 1677. So 6 times the x coordinate minus 2 is that. Number 13, what is the minimum value of the given function? So in this case, the minimum value, we're just going to graph it and see what the lowest point is on the graph. And the lowest point is right here at 1,728. In this case, if they're asking for the minimum value, they're asking for the minimum y value. Unless they explicitly say what is the minimum, or what is the x value when the given function is at its minimum, then you put in the x value. But if it doesn't say anything, you're going to assume that it's going to be the y value. How many solutions does this how many solutions does this given equation have? So let's plug this in. Equals negative 98x. So in this case, the solution is exactly 1 at 0, 0. So if you look at this intuitionally, no other answer other than 0 is going to give you a true statement. Like if we put in x equals 1, like if you put in, there we go. Like if we do like x equals 1, then we're never going to get an actual value because negative 98 is always going to be bigger than negative 49. So only when x is actually 0, then that's when we get a true statement, because then 0 is equal to 0. So there's only one given solution. The function g is defined by this. The value of g times 7 minus w is 0, where w is a constant. What is the sum of all these possible values? Alright, so this is going to be a tricky one, but let's get through it. So let's start by graphing the equation. Squared. Perfect. So we have the value of g times 7 minus there. So the value of this is 0, so alright, so essentially what this is saying is the value of g times 7 minus w is 0, where w is a constant. So this is saying so that we see here that negative 6 is a root. So this is saying that w is a constant when it's equal to a root. So we need to find like the root. We can find the value of w when it's equal to a root. So, and we have 3 roots, or 3 solutions. So we can set a regression, and then have it solve for all the possible values of w, and then add them all up. Sorry. So, let's do that for all the different possible answer choices. So we have 13, we have 7, and we have and we have 5. So 5 plus 7 plus 13 is 25. So what's the sum of all the possible values of w? 25. and that is our answer. Next. So a grove of 6 rows of birch trees and 5 rows of maple trees. Each row of birch trees has 6 trees 20 feet or taller, and 6 trees shorter than 20 feet. Each row has this. A tree from one of these rows will be selected at random. What is the probability of selecting a maple tree, given that the tree is 20 feet or taller? So we need to find the maple tree if we're picking a tree that is 20 feet or taller. So it's going to be the probability of finding a maple tree over that it's 20 feet or taller. So let's see how many trees we have that are 20 feet or taller. So each row of birch trees has 8 trees that are 20 feet or taller, and 6 trees. It has 6 rows of birch trees, and then each row has 6 trees 20 feet or taller. So 6 times 8, so we have 48 for for birch, and then we have 5 rows of maple trees. Each row of maple trees has 9 trees 20 feet or taller, so we have 5 times 9, which is 45, and 7 trees shorter than 20 feet. We don't care about that information, so now we can do 48 plus 45 in the denominator, which is 93. So we know that there are a possibility of 93 trees that are 20 feet or taller. So now, what is the probability of selecting a maple tree from this total pool? So how many maple trees do we have that are 20 feet or taller? It is each row of these maple trees is 9 trees, so it's going to be again 45 over 93. Yeah, so it's going to be 45 over 93. And in this case, that's going to be answer choice number C. So, as you remember, the maple trees that are 20 feet or taller are 5 rows of maple trees, and then there's 9 in each row. They're 20 feet or taller, so it's 45. So it's 45 possible maple trees that we can choose from out of a total pool of 93 possible maple trees in total that are 20 feet or taller. So the probability of selecting them is 15 and 31, which is answer choice number C, or answer choice C. So a rectangle is inscribed in a circle such that each vertex of the rectangle lies on the circumference of the circle. The diagonal of the rectangle is twice the length of the shortest side of the rectangle. The area of the rectangle is 1089 root 3 square units. What is the length in units of the diameter of the circle? So we know that it's base times height for the area of a rectangle, or square, rectangle, either one, is equal to 1089 square root 3. Okay, now if this doesn't ring any bells, that's fine. But if you know here, this is actually a special right triangle in a way. So the area is going to be so it's pretty much a 30, 60, 90 special right triangle, but just like if it was just like a rectangle. So if you had like the other two sides, or if it was like a full triangle rather than half the triangle. So in this case, it'd be the base is x1 square root 3 times x1, because our other side here is x, so it's pretty much just x times x root 3 equals 1089 root 3. So in this case, our x is going to be 33, just if this triangle was extended. So that gives us the x of this triangle square thing, and it gives us the height. So what is the length in units of the diameter of the circle? And so the diagonal of the rectangle is twice the length of the shortest side of the rectangle. So if you know the diagonal of the rectangle is twice the length of the shortest side, so that's again 30, 60, 90. So if the height here is x, if the diagonal is twice that, 2x, that's just right triangle here. So now we have the height of the right triangle. So now we need to find the length of the diameter. So that the diagonal of the rectangle is twice the shortest side. The shortest side is x, which is the height. So it's 33 times 2, which gets us 66. And in this case, when you have a hold on, let me draw this out for you guys. Okay, so pretend this is a good drawing. Okay, and now if you have a square here, okay, and then you have the diagonal is essentially going to be the diameter of the actual circle. So it's going to go from this corner to this corner, which is the length of the two longest sides. Or it'll be like the length of like from the farthest point to the farthest point. So from one end of the triangle to the other, which in this case is actually going to be the diameter. So if we know that the height right here is 33, and the diagonal is 2 times the height, so 33 times 2, that gets us 66. So the length in units of the diameter of the circle is 66 units. And that's our answer. So this is another regression that we'll use with the tilde. A positive number A is 2,241% the sum of the positive numbers B and C, and B is 83% of the 83% of C. What percent of B is A? So we'll set this up, and then we'll say so A is 2,241. So A is 2,241%. Or actually, we'll make this easier. We'll write A on the left side. So that is 2,241% of the sum of the positive numbers B and C. So B plus C. And make sure you write parentheses, otherwise it'll take, it'll think that it's 2,241% of B and then add it on to C. But in this case, it's the sum of the two positive numbers first, and then an increase of that. So after we have that, it says B is 83% of C. So B is 83% of C. So we need to find what B percent of A is. So what percent of B is A? So A is, we'll say P percent of A, and we'll look for P. Oh, sorry, I misread that. C is P percent of B. So P is 4,941. So B is 4,491% of A, which is our correct answer. So in the given system of equations, P is a constant. If the system has no solution, what is the value of P? So there's two ways to do this. Just algebraically line up the x's and y's, or we can write in a slider for P. Minus over 8x. Plus 7 over 4 equals py. My goodness. Py plus and we have to find a slider for P. So now we need to find when these lines are parallel and will never touch. So in this case at 3.4 they do touch here at this point. So let's make this 3.5 and see if these ever touch. And so here, it looks like they still aren't touching. We can keep going. And so it looks like these lines are truly parallel. So if this system has no solution, what is the value of P? So in this case, P is 3.5. Because if the system has no solution, so the lines never touch, the value of P for that to satisfy the fact that it has no solution, P would have to be at 3.5. So the table shows three values of x and the corresponding values g of x, where g of x equals f of x over x plus 3, and f is a linear function. What is the y-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane? So this is definitely on the harder side of the SAT questions, but once you understand it, it's not too terrible. So let's start off with graphing our equation. Plotting the points that we are given. So that's g of x, which is just, in this case, y1. So y1 is equal to f of x over x plus 3. And we're given that f is a linear function, and we define the y-intercept of f of x. So we can rewrite f of x as mx plus b, because in this, or like for linear function, the format of linear function is y equals mx plus b. And in this case, we already have our y equals, so we're just writing mx plus b to make it into a linear function. And remember, we have to write this as x1 to say that it's actually the point x1 and not like the actual number. And so let's do that. And then we also have to make this a regression and not actually equals to, because if we're using y1 and different constants, we have to use regression for it to guess our point for us. So now it's giving us that our equation of the line here, f of x, has a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of 36. So y equals 4x plus 36. So yeah, we're given 4x plus 36. Sorry. And when we graph this, we get that our y-intercept is 0, 36. So essentially what this is giving us is g of x is equal to a linear function over x plus 3, the point's x plus 3. So now we are essentially rewriting this into a linear form so that Desmos gives us the equation of that line to satisfy like what's the parameters that it's giving us. And when it's doing that, we then graph that line that it gives us, and we find out that this intersects at 0, 36, which is our y-intercept. A circle has a center G, points M and N lie on the circle. This is a harder question, so let's come back to this one. Actually, no. Let's start with that one. So, we know it's a circle, and points M and N lie on the circle. Line segments MH and NH are tangent to the circle at points M and N respectively. If the radius is 168 millimeters, and the perimeter of quadrilateral that is 3,856 millimeters, what is the distance between points G and H? Sorry, let me build my... Alright, sorry, let's continue. So, this is essentially giving us a circle that we have to start with. So, let's start by graphing a circle. So, we'll do x plus, just call it 10. Squared plus y plus 10 squared equals 100. So this is like kind of a circle, but it's giving us the radius of the circle is 168 millimeters. So 168 millimeters. There we go. Yes, okay. So we have a circle at G, a center of G, So G, we're going to label as 0, 0. With that G. Then we'll label point M at 168, 0. And we'll point N at 0, 168. There we go. So we'll label this M and this N. There we go. So, the points M and N lie in the circle. Line segments MH and NH are tangent to the circle at points M and N respectively. If the radius is 168 and the perimeter of this quadrilateral is 3,856, what is the distance between points G and H? So in this case, we're just drawing this out to visualize it, okay? And we know that there's another point at at H, but we don't know where H is. So we'll call H at 600, 600. You know, something way out here. Yeah, way out here. Okay, and to help us visualize this further, we are also going to draw a polygon between N, G, M, and H, just so that we can like really see like what this is going to look like, or supposedly supposed to look like. Because right now we don't actually know if any of this is true. We're just putting random points and hoping that it's, and just visualizing it. So now we need to find the distance between point G and point H. But obviously we can't use this because we don't know if this is correct. But what we can do is find the distance between 2 points. So we know that, or between like N and G. So we can use the Desmos distance. And we can find that distance between N and G is 168. And M and G is 168 as well. So that is something that we have. So we have 168 times 2 plus 2x equals 3,856. So essentially what this is saying is that we know that the perimeter of a quadrilateral is 3,856, and then the two like sides out of the 4 that we know are 168 times 2 units, so 168, and then there's 2 of them, so times 2 units plus the 2 unknown sides that we have equals this. So now we can figure out what x is with regression, and we can see that it is 1,760, but that's not our final answer. What this is saying is that each one of these points that are still unknown to us is 1,760. Like the length between these. So, and now if we know that the distance between the center point and some point way out, it's going to be more than the points that are closer to it. So we know that N is closer to H, and M is closer to H than G is to H. So in this case, we can automatically get rid of A and B, and automatically guess D, because it's the only point that's actually bigger than N and M, sorry, the distance between G and H is. But if we didn't know that, we could then do 3,856 minus 168 times 2, so we have 350. Is 350. So we can check our answer with that. Okay, and now remember this is a circle. So we have 168 squared plus we know that our x1 is that squared equals, so regress to what we don't know of this. So we can do that. Yeah, so this is essentially saying, so remember this is in the format of a square, of a circle. So we know our radius is 168 squared plus this number squared is our h squared. So essentially we're solving for what is h, and h is, it's like a triangle pretty much. it's the Pythagorean theorem. So it's the distance between G and H, so it's like our hypotenuse in a way. So we know that GN and H form a triangle, so we have to find like the hypotenuse. If we know that if we know the length of N and H and G and H, we just have to find the length between G and H, which is just our hypotenuse in this case. So that's 1,768 units, which is our answer choice. And so now, let's do number 22, last question. The function f is defined by f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants. The graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane passes through the points 7, 0, and -3, 0. If a is an integer greater than 1, which of the following could be the value of a plus b? So, let's graph what we have. Equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So, we know that it's going to pass through the points 7, 0 and -3, 0. And so let's label this requise and requise 2. Alright, and now so we have 3 sliders that we have to play around with, so that it lines up with requise 1 and requise 2. If a is an integer greater than 1, so we know in our parameters that a has to be a number that's greater than 1, like a whole number greater than 1. So what we can do is just set our step equal to 1, so that we only get integers, just to make it easier so we don't mess up. And it has to be greater than 1, so it has to be at least 2. Which of the following could be the value of a plus b? So now we have to play around with the sliders a little bit, so that we get a value that is something like this. Let's call this 100, let's call this 20. Or sorry, -50, and then up to 10. So let's keep moving this over. Seems about, let's call that there. And that actually lines up like really well. If you press on this, it shows you that here's a point, and here's another point. So, perfect. So, when we graph this, and we set a equal to 2, b equal to -8, and c equal to -42, we get a graph that lines up perfectly with our points. And so now, what is the value of a plus b? Or which of the following could be the value of a plus b? So there's multiple ways of doing this, obviously. And no matter which way you do it, you will still get the correct answer. But the way that we found it, if we get 2 plus -8, or I think we can just do a plus b, no? Yeah, we can. A plus b equals -6. And that's our answer choice. So that's the correct answer for number 22. And check our work. Everything's submitted. Perfect. Alright, awesome. So let's give you our score. And as we see here, practice test 6, December 24th, 2025, day before Christmas, and we have a perfect 800 on math. Look at that. Perfect. So that's going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy holidays to everyone. So have a great rest of your day. Peace out.